Today's reading is from the Gospel of John, chapter 15. I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. You are already clean because of the word I've spoken to you. Remain in me, as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Now remain in my love. If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. I've told you this so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. I no longer call you servants, because a servant does not know his master's business. Instead, I've called you friends. For everything that I learned from my Father I have made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you so that you might go and bear fruit that will last, and so that whatever you ask in my name, the Father will give you. This is my command: love each other. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. You can be seated.
Good morning again to all of you. Great to be here with you this morning on this fine and beautiful Columbus morning. Wasn't it just great on the way in today? We were cold rain, not my favorite weather, but great to be in this place with you and to feel what is genuinely the warmth and the love and the joy of being here with you this morning. It's a special day. Today's Confirmation Sunday. You'll hear a little bit more about that during the service this morning, but I brought up with me a little handout you might have got on your way in, and if you didn't, I'd encourage you to pick it up on your way out. We get to celebrate today 16 of our teenagers at church who are affirming their faith in Jesus, their life on the vine, is what we're going to learn about today. And I find it heartwarming to read through these little statements here, and a great opportunity to pray for some of the teenagers in our church. And this handout here is also available for you if you pick that up to make some notes as we learn together this morning. Our confirmation leaders chose today's Bible reading from John chapter 15, which I'm really glad that you had the good wisdom to choose. It's one of my favorite passages. We're going to learn from that passage here this morning, and I'm going to zero in especially on one thing that Jesus says right at the beginning. I think this passage is so full of help and so full of hope for us that I want to share with you today, and I'm going to zero in on the claim that Jesus makes in the very first line of the passage when he says, I am the true vine. I'm the vine, you're the branches, God's the gardener, but more than that, I am the true vine. Have you ever looked around at things in life and they turned out not to be exactly what you expected? They weren't entirely the true version of what they promised to be. So one of the ones that I notice all the time, and I don't know, maybe it's because I just love to eat so much, and I do love to eat. One of them is the pictures that I see like on commercials or menus of just like, this is going to be like fresh vegetables, it stands tall, it's neat, and then my food comes and it's like falling out of the box, right? Now, the problem is with me that I look at that and I'm like, oh, I want to eat that one too, right? So maybe not the best example, but another one that works for me is, have you ever like planned a vacation and you look at like pictures of the hotel or the resort or whatever, and like it's endless beach and beautiful spa, pool, whatever. I mean, like this, but 10 times that. And then you get there and you're like, I don't know, should I swim or should I fish? Like, where's my pole? I don't know which one is more suited to this. Sometimes things promise to be something and they really aren't that same thing. And at least my crazy mind thinks of things like this. When I hear Jesus say, I am the true vine and you all are the branches and my Father's the gardener. And I think to myself, like, what's the promise in there? And if there is a true vine, then I suppose there must be fake vines. Jesus is saying there are false vines and I'm the true vine. And I find myself asking questions like, well, what's a vine supposed to do? What is it that Jesus is promising that he will be the authentic version of? that he will be the hopeful version of, that he will do in our lives that we are looking for and that we will probably look for somewhere, and that if we aren't careful and if we don't listen, we might settle for the false version of. We might wind up settling for the green pool, sloppy hamburger version of vine and life. What are those things? One of the things that Jesus tells us in this passage that he's talking about, that he's promising to us, is flourishing and fruitfulness in life. Remain in me, like your branch is in the vine, and just like a branch is connected to a vine, and if a branch is connected to the vine, then it's nourished and it flourishes and it bears fruit. So if you remain in me, you'll bear much fruit. And if not, you're going to wither. You're going to wither and dry up and shrivel up. And this promise is one that I think all of us are interested in. I want to ask you real quick, how many of you are like, no, my aspiration is to live a fruitless life. I want fruitlessness. Shriveled up, withering up, right? I've yet to meet that person. I keep expecting someone's going to be a smart aleck and raise their hand, whatever. So if it's really what you want, we'll talk about it later. We want fruitfulness in life, right? We want fruitfulness in life. And we're all looking for what's that thing? What are those things? What are those conditions? What is it that makes me feel alive, that makes me flourish, that makes me fruitful in life? You could even do a little exercise, and you don't have to write this down, say it out loud, but let me just ask you, pay attention in your own mind. If I ask you, what is your picture of a fruitful life? Something just flickered across the movie screen in your brain, right? And it's interesting even to ask ourselves, why was it that picture? Where did that come from? What taught me that picture of fruitful life? I noticed yesterday as I was watching our beloved Buckeyes, and my apologies to the Michigan State fans in the room, that was a rough day for you. In Christian love, I sympathize with you. I find commercials during the game, I'll just go there. I noticed this one car commercial. Some of you may have seen it too. I noticed the tagline. I won't even say what make of car it was, but I noticed the tagline said, you buy this car, and then it promised, feel alive. I was like, awesome. I've been looking for that. I wondered where I was going to find it, feel alive. Not very long after that, I was driving around right here in our area, northwest suburbs, by a new housing development, and the promise that was on the sign right outside said, where life comes together. It's like, awesome, I've been looking for that. That's what I want. But then I thought the problem is that if I moved into that place, I'd be moving me with me, and that would be the problem, right? No change in external circumstances is really going to bring life to me as long as me remains the same, right? But there are these promises. There are vines that are promising you life and flourishing and fruitfulness all over the place. There's pictures that we have in our mind of what's going to make me feel alive, what's a fruitful life. There are dreams that we have, and maybe you have a dream of this is what family life, this is what companionship, this is what relationship life looks like, this is what success looks like, this is what prosperity looks like for me. This is how I imagine what life will look like as it flourishes for me, what life will look like as it is a fruitful life. There's two risks with those pictures. There's two risks. One, we don't say out loud very often. One is that you won't actually ever get those things. That's one. Sometimes our dreams in this life don't work out the way that we imagine. We imagine I'm going to have this relationship someday, I'm going to have this marriage someday, and it's going to be the most perfect relationship there ever was, and it's going to be so joyful and so peaceful and so easy, and these are my children are going to be like, and it's all going to work out. And then you live life, and then 20 years later, it didn't work out the way that I thought it was going to. And I'm going to achieve this, and I'm going to produce that, and I'm going to achieve this level of success and impact and prosperity, and then you wake up one day and go, that dream didn't come true. And that's okay. We can dream new dreams, and life has its brokennesses, and we find our way through. But if that's what you thought flourishing was, if you're like, that's going to be life, and that's going to be fruit, and then it doesn't come true, you're setting yourself up for an awful lot of disappointment in life. A lot of fake vine, green pool, sloppy hamburger disappointment when your dreams don't come true. The other risk, by the way, is not that your dreams won't come true. The other possibly riskier risk is that they will come true. And you will think that that is what fruitfulness is, and you will think that that is what flourishing is. I listened not very long ago to a speech that was given. This may seem like an odd person for me in this place to quote, but it was a speech that was given by an atheist novelist whose name is David Foster Wallace. I don't know if you ever read any of his work before, but he was giving a commencement address at a college. I saw some of you smile. Maybe you've seen the same address. He was giving a graduation speech at a college, speaking to an audience that you can tell he assumes believes or disbelieves, that is, just like he does, among people that he imagines agree with him already. And what he said was, this is the best reason I can think of actually for believing in and worshiping something transcendent, something beyond ourselves, something beyond this life, because everything else that you worship and chase in this life will eventually eat you alive. This is what he told these college students. You chase after success, you will eventually feel like a failure. You worship power, you will eventually realize how weak you are. You chase after companionship, you will feel alone, and on and on. It will eat you alive. The other risk is that your dream will come true, and you will find out that it was empty in the first place, that it was just a false vine, right? So what is that fruit? What is that flourishing? And Jesus actually, he says the answer. I'm sure you saw it, and maybe for 5 minutes you've been feeling it coming. I don't know. But Jesus said in the passage what it is. This is my command. This is what fruit looks like. Love one another. Love one another. And that is, of course, the right answer, and it would be the right answer even if I didn't agree with it. It would be right because Jesus said so. So it's the right answer. It's just also more difficult than it first appears. It's more difficult than it first appears because it can be hard to know where that love comes from, and there's a trickiness that there's a risk that we might go chasing after love as a way to fulfill ourselves. And can you feel what's going to go sideways with that? Let me give you an example of this. Did any of you watch the TV series that was popular until a few years ago? It ended. It was called The Good Place. Did anybody ever watch The Good Place? And will you admit it in church? I don't know. But I did watch that. So it's a show about what happens after you die. And based on your life after you die, do you go to the good place or do you go to the bad place, right? Secular show, not a Christian show at all. And in the operating system, in the imagination, in the world of the show, the whole thing is, did you do enough selfless, loving things in your life to deserve to get to go to the good place? Or did you not? Did you live a bad life, and now you have to go to the bad place? But one of the questions that they begin to entertain in the show, which I think is a profound question that most of us have probably wrestled with at one time or another, their question was, but if you're doing selfless, loving things in order to reward yourself, in order to fulfill yourself, in order to get something for yourself, then does that actually count? Was that actually a selfless, loving thing if I tried to love you to get something good for me? Now, they asked a good question, and as far as I could tell, they never were able to develop a satisfying answer to that question within the confines of the show. But it's a profound and important question. And you don't need a TV show to wrestle with that question. You don't need a TV show to know that that's a big issue. You can see it. You can feel it. You can smell the difference. It's all over it. When you see somebody or when we ourselves are loving somebody else as a project to make myself feel better, right? I'm in this, I'm trying to love you because it makes me feel good. I'm trying to love you, I'm trying to serve you because it makes me look good. I'm trying to love you or serve you because it fills me up somehow. It makes me flourish. Well, is it about you? Is it love? Or is it really about me? And it's a different thing. It's a different thing. So the answer to the fruitfulness is love one another. Sacrificial love. Jesus said in this passage, greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for one's friends. But where does that come from? It's not so simple just to say to do it. Well, the whole logic of the Christian gospel is just the opposite of this whole, I'm going to try to love you enough to make myself good enough. I'm going to try to love you enough to fulfill myself and give me life and make me flourish. The whole logic of the Christian gospel is that's not what I could do. I never was able to do that in the first place. And our fullness comes not from what we do, but from what Jesus has already done for us. So profound. When we entered into worship this morning, we began singing. It just moved my heart right away. You and I sang the same words. We came and said, my hands are dirty. That's what I brought to this equation. I can't even lift them up to you, but you plead my cause and you right my wrongs. The whole logic of the Christian gospel, the whole logic of the Christian identity is that while we were yet sinners, while we were yet enemies of God, Jesus Christ laid down his life for us. And so we receive this identity. We receive this flourishing. We receive this gift of love from Jesus. We sang in our third song, I think it was, I will build my life upon your love. That's the firm foundation. And I think about the life of faith that our confirmands, that our teenagers will be entering into. I think about the life of faith that all of us are trying to lead, the flourishing and fruitfulness that all of us seek. And what's the foundation? It's not any of those other dreams that we had. It's not even my practice of selfless love. It's the love of Jesus for me that makes me full, that makes me secure. And then, that's the most liberating truth you could ever believe. That's the most liberating experience you could ever have. Because now you don't need to use other people to fill you up. You get to love out of the overflow of what Jesus has already done for you. Here's how I've learned to say this. It's an adaptation of something I heard somewhere along the way. Jesus is the one source of life who will fulfill you when you find him and forgive you when you fail him. And you go looking for vines everywhere else and chase anything else to try to fill you up, and it always winds up either not coming true or not filling you up. And then the inevitability is, it's not an option. We're not going to try not to be fruitful. We're not going to just give up on it. We will seek fruitfulness somewhere. And you know what else is inevitable? You have, and I have, and we do seek it outside of Jesus. We do. We seek it somewhere else. And Jesus forgives us anyway. He is the one source of life who will fulfill you when you find him and forgive you when you fail him. He's the true vine. There's one other thing, just real quickly, that I want to share with you that I think Jesus offers us in the true vine, and I'll be a lot more direct about this one. That is, Jesus offers us a place of connection and belonging. His image of being a vine is so comprehensive, and it's so simple. I'm the vine, all y'all are the branches, my Father is the gardener. That pretty much covers it, right? That's our relationship with God, it's our relationship with one another, it's our place of belonging. And I'll just say the same thing I said before. It's not like you're not going to look for that. We will inevitably, everybody looks for a place of belonging. And all of those searches for belonging are risky. Every time we try to find our belonging based on some criteria in our lives, something that we fit into, something that we conform to, we find our people when we gather together with other artists or athletes or business people or people who live by us or people who think like us and have the same opinions as us. By the way, for teenagers, like our confirmands today, this is on the surface, right? We're like all trying to find, those of us who get older, it's not like we're not still doing it. We're just better at hiding it, right? We just stop thinking about it in the front of our minds as much, but it's still there. But the problem with all those identities, all of us need belonging. It's what we are made for. But the problem with looking for belonging outside the vine is it always depends on something that you're not going to live up to. It's like, but wait, am I the right kind of artist? And do I produce the right kind of art? And am I really the right kind of athlete? And am I really as successful? And what if I don't hold those opinions anymore? What about the belonging that was based on all these external criteria? But belonging in the vine doesn't depend on any of that. All we bring to the vine is dirty hands, and all we receive is grace. And it's not ever because we actually qualified or because we ever belonged, but Jesus invites us to himself to find our belonging among all the other branches, none of whom belong either, right? But all of whom get to come together and be plugged into the vine for no other reason that Jesus himself says so. That we bring to him our dirty hands, that we bring to him our sin. And he says, I love you anyway. And he calls us his own and welcomes us to his table and makes us a part of his family. And we find our belonging in the vine. And the same thing is true as was before. Jesus is the one source of life, and you could fill in belonging if you want, who will actually fulfill you, who will make you belong when you find him, and forgive you when you don't belong, and forgive you when you fail him. Jesus is the true vine. So all I want to invite you to do today is the very same thing that Jesus himself said in the passage. It's really the one application. It's the one invitation. We read 17 verses. He asks us to do one thing. Remain in me. Stay connected to me. Stick with me. An older translation says, abide in me. I like that. We abide in him because he is our abode, because he is our home, because we find our belonging in him. I want to invite you to find your life. The life that you seek. We all seek fullness. We all seek flourishing. We all seek fruitfulness. We all seek a place to belong. And I know where it is. We find it in Jesus, and we all look for it. And there is a place to receive it. It is in Jesus. And if you find yourself in a place this morning where you've been looking for that, and you haven't found it, and it's on the surface for you, and it's in your heart, and you know what it is to feel like you're not flourishing and not fruitful, and where am I going to find that life? Where will I find that fullness? Jesus says, come to me. Come to me, all you who are weary. Come to me, all you who are heavy laden. Come to me, all you who know your guilt, all you who are empty inside, and he will fill you up, and he will forgive you. Just come to Jesus. In a second, you're going to hear the invitation that Pastor Dave is going to give us at the table. And you'll hear the words of Jesus promising you the fullness of his presence here in the bread and the wine and in the community gathered in his spirit. You're going to hear the promise of Jesus offering you the forgiveness of your sins. Just receive it and come find the true vine. Come find real life from him. And for the many of us who have already found our life in Christ, he says the same thing, right? Remain in me. Because the empty vines keep making empty promises. The false vines keep making empty promises. And we are always tempted by it. We're always like, oh no, I think that'll actually make me fuller. And it never does. And we have to come running back to Jesus and find fullness in him and forgiveness in him when we fail him. We have an opportunity to come to his table in just a moment, to respond to him, to hear his offer of life and his invitation, remain in me. Take Jesus up on that invitation. Remain in him. I'm going to leave you with an encouragement that doesn't come from my voice, but it comes from the voices of the 16 teenagers who are confirming their faith today. Each one of them wrote a little faith statement, and then we created a video where they shared some of their own words, kind of a little excerpt from those faith statements. And all together, I just love how beautiful it is. It's a picture of the body of Christ. Like all of us, none of us are the whole thing all by ourselves, and together we represent what Jesus is doing in us. And you can listen to their words and listen to how together they are a part of us. They find their place in our life as a church, as our mission in a church, and our teenagers can lead us.
Around the time I was in middle school, I started to put God first and to trust Him.
Between middle school and high school, I really began to develop my relationship with God by seeing others living their best life through Christ.
In 6th grade, I went off to camp and experienced God in a new, personal way.
God has blessed me through unique experiences to see Him in action, transforming others in my own faith.
Throughout my journey of faith, God has taken me from being content to being fulfilled.
My faith in God has gotten stronger as I've become closer with Him in life.
I have been taught to grow from feeling neutral about God's love to feeling expectant and then renewed.
Now that my faith has grown, I know Jesus more closely and I don't have to be afraid.
I started having the Lord active in my life through my successes and my hardships.
As a result of His immense love, I was changed, made new, and filled with the Holy Spirit.
Because I know that God is faithful to me, I know that He is true and forever and always.
God gives me confidence that if I put trust in Him, everything will work out according to His plan for me.
I feel God's never-ending love when I'm at church with other worshipers, but I also feel God's love when I'm at my home praying alone for God's forgiveness and His grace.
Reading the Bible gives me a sense of purpose and stability because it proves time and time again that no one has ever made the wrong decision by trusting in Jesus.
I pray that I'll be able to trust the Lord with my whole heart so that I can follow in His path.
The thing that makes my faith so special to me is that I know that Jesus has me.
I know God will always love me and I can trust Him.
I have seen Him work in my life and I know that I can trust Him.
God has shown that no matter what, He will never stop loving me.
Jesus became the one I could rely on in times of adversity, and I hope to continue to grow my bond with Him.
To me, confirmation is not just becoming an adult in my faith, but also showing God my love, gratitude, and dedication towards Him.
His unapologetic love has renewed my purpose and strengthened my faith, and I'm excited to dig deeper into that.
I believe that His promises are eternal, and that the closer I get with God, the more I will feel His peace and presence in everything that I do.
Even when I feel lost and don't feel a connection with God, He's always there for me and will always pursue a relationship with me.
I will be more accepting of God's love even when it gets difficult because of what other people say.
As I move into this new phase of confirming my faith, I hope that God will change my heart to match His desires.
I know that no matter how bad life gets or how bad I'm suffering, He will always be there for me, and for that I will commit my life to Him.
I know that I can gain strength and courage from Him forever and always.
I prayed that I would trust God in all I do so others may see Christ through me.
I am ready to show God that I trust Him and confirm my faith that He's the one that I'll count on forever.
Amen.